Hi there, I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast. Welcome to this episode brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, an exclusive personal and professional development program for physicians where you can learn entrepreneurship so you can retake and regain control of your physician life. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Chiagozie Fawole, and she's actually a real estate coach for physicians. We have a great conversation with Dr. Fawole about feeling empowered to design your real estate life. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, we're very excited today. We're going to set in for a huge lesson in real estate. We're honored to have the wonderful, the famous Chiagozie Fawole. We have here, she has been before, not anymore, as you'll see, she'll tell us in her story, a full-time pediatric anesthesiologist, but not any longer thanks for her real estate investments. She actually helps physicians get started building wealth with real estate. She has been able to have long-term rentals and short-term rentals, and she will tell us about those fancy words like arbitrage and automation. And just we're very excited. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm really excited. Thank you for having me on, Dr. Diaz-Ramirez.
So we're going to start with the medical part, because I like to see, we're doctors at the end of the day. You're still a pediatric anesthesiologist. And we were talking earlier about how our previous mentors, while we were going through our residencies, inspired us. And now you're one of them. To be a pediatric anesthesiologist, I think that you have to be a special person. They, in many ways, with the patience and the sweetness and the accuracy and being really responsible for those little lives and very skilled manually to be able to take care of these patients. So it's many things, and knowing all the physiologies. To me, it's a wonderful profession. Yes, I'm an anesthesiologist, and I did consider it at once. But tell me what took you to medicine and eventually becoming a pediatric anesthesiologist.
Yeah, so when I first went into med school, I wanted to become a pediatrician. I just knew I loved working with kids. And up to that point, that was the only way that I knew people worked with kids. But as time went on, I had this mentor who was an ortho resident at the time. And she kept telling me, are you sure you want to go into peds? Are you sure you want to go into peds? And I couldn't understand what she meant by asking that question. But like midway through med school, I was like, you know what? I want to do neurosurgery, because I kind of felt that I liked the OR. And so I was going to do neurosurgery, and I did my sub-Is in neurosurgery. I was out there, doing research, the whole neurosurgery prep, build up, right? And then I got engaged. And then I interviewed for neurosurgery. And I call it one of the biggest blessings of my life, because I did not match in neurosurgery. So the day that I got that call, it was like, okay, now what do I do? And they gave me the little sheet for the SOAP, for the, the supplementary application. And I picked it up, and there it was in alphabetical order, A, anesthesiology. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that one. So that's how I ended up doing anesthesia. Long story short, now when it came...
So what if urology was at the top, or what if you would have chosen anything?
I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. It just happened that anesthesia was A, and I was like, oh, I never thought about that one. I like the OR. I like physiology. This seems to actually work. So actually, I ended up applying and getting in, in that like 2-hour window. But then when it came to picking my subspecialty, I had two options in my head. It was either cardiac anesthesia or peds. And I thought to myself, I can do cardiac for 1 month. I don't think I can do it for my life. Okay, so that was basically how I decided on peds anesthesia, because I was like, I love the kids. It takes me back to sort of where I began in medicine. I enjoy working with kids, and there we are. Here we are.
Well, we were at crossroads, you and me at the time of choosing the subspecialty. For me, it was either interventional pain or pediatric anesthesiology. And for me, I also wanted to be a neurosurgeon. That thing happened to me, yes. And but in my case, I ended up actually doing neurosurgery procedures by being an interventional pain management physician. So I do, spine implants and all that stuff. So I was very fortunate in that way. And the kids, I love my mentors, but I just didn't want to deal with the parents. So that's why I'll go to interventional pain. And I have had a great career doing that. So I'm very happy. So you did that. How long ago did you graduate from your fellowship?
Finished fellowship 2017.
2017.
And it's about the 5-year mark.
And during your residency, you were already getting long-term rentals, right?
That is correct. So I began the whole real estate thing during residency. It was during my drives in Brooklyn that I was just learning all that stuff. Did my first deal ever, my CA3 year. So that first deal was a rehab all the way across down in Norfolk, Virginia. But then I put together my first, what I'll call a syndication, because it technically was that. But my first rental deal, at the time I was a resident, so I didn't have any money, right? So I basically put together the deal, and I had 5 investors, mostly physicians, invest in that deal. And we were able to take down a 12-unit apartment complex in Rochester, New York, while I was in Brooklyn.
So I have 2 questions before you keep going.
Yeah.
2 questions. You say that you learn in the car.
Yeah.
Or in your whatever you're commuting, you learn to do real estate in your commuting. So you took advantage of that time. So I want to learn how you did that. Mm-hmm. And the other one is these people join you and nobody had experience before from real estate.
Yeah. So the thing is, that's actually a pretty interesting fact. But for me, I had spent a whole year learning, but like I said, I did not have any money. So I had all this information, all this knowledge, all this mental time spent literally immersed in all things real estate. But what I lacked was cash. And so when I did that first deal, while I was doing the first deal, the rehab deal down in Norfolk, Virginia, and we were able to actually pull that one off. While the deal was happening, I was talking about it. So they saw me talk about my deals, which is what I tell my people all the time, talk about what you're doing. So when they saw that I had done that deal, the deal was still in progress when the second deal came on. I told them, I was like, listen, here are the numbers. I showed them numbers, showed them, all the projections and things. I mean, I wasn't a huge person in, and I'm still not. I usually don't base my purchases on future value. I try to see what it's doing right now, like cash flow as it is. So I was able to show them at the time that, here's what it is. Here's how, how much we're buying it for. I'll have a property manager on board. So I'm not going to be the person running the deal, right? So basically, you don't need to trust my skills. You just need to trust that the numbers are what they are. And there's a manager to manage. And yeah.
How many doors was the first deal before
12.
The 12-door deal? No, before the 12-door deal?
Before the 12 door, just that first deal, just that first rehab deal. That was 1 door. Yeah.
1 door. So you went from 1 door to 12 doors with people trusting you, with you having learned this thing on the commuting.
Yep. Precisely.
And why that's always, inspiring, because people say, oh, I cannot do that. Oh, I don't know enough. Oh, I don't know. There's ways. When there's a will, there's a way, right? And there's the mindset. So where did you become, or what inspired you to first go and learn about real estate?
Yeah. Okay. So my husband was out of town, and I was sitting at home expecting my first, watching TV, and I saw these guys, Tarek and Christina Flip or Flop on HGTV, do a rehab deal. And they made, I remember this particular deal that they made $60K in 1 flip. And I was like, wait, my salary at the time was $54,000-ish as a resident, right? And I was like, they just made my entire annual salary with 1 deal. What am I doing, right? They didn't have to miss, kids' events. They basically didn't have to, spend 13 years in school. I can do what they're doing. And that was what got me down the initial rabbit hole. That was what got me listening to podcasts in my car. That was what got me reading books in my car, audiobooks. Yeah. That was what started.
Oh my goodness. So TV helped you. So first, guys, watch TV.
Watch TV.
Then listen to podcasts. Then do the math and get the deals and get people. Oh my goodness. So 12 doors.
Yeah.
Tell me about, what was the main difference? Like you got people to trust you, you got people to do the math and everything. In terms of the time that it required to get that one door versus your 12 doors, was like in terms of the work itself, was there much difference?
Oh, no difference. No difference. Matter of fact, when I think about it, I may have even done, other than the actual part of talking to people to raise capital for the 12 one, I think I may have done more for the single unit, because that one was an active rehab deal. Now, that first rehab deal that we did, I ran it from Brooklyn, but it was happening in Norfolk. So it was still the same kind of work. So phone work, right? So talking to contractors, telling them where to be, talking to my realtor, talking to my dad, basically like being like a control tower. And now for the 12 unit, it was basically the same thing. I had a property manager on ground. He was in Rochester. We ended up moving to Rochester for my fellowship, and the place technically was 15 minutes away while I was there, but I was a fellow. Okay. So it could have been 3 years away from me and I still wouldn't have been there.
You were a fellow with a baby.
That too.
So you were working as a fellow with the baby, and who was taking care of the baby?
Oh, grandma. So my husband's mom lived with us. Yeah. So that, yeah.
Okay.
My entire life has been
telling people what to do. Take care of my baby. Take care of my thing. Bring me tubing for these patients. Whatever. Okay. So that really took the same time. The effort was in just putting the deal together, doing the numbers, and then getting people to trust you. And then the syndication part of it, because there's some legality about that.
Yes.
Did you learn that too on that year that you got ready?
Yes, so I did. And in that particular deal, the reason that I said it was technically a syndication is that if you really pulled it back and, dissected it and really wanted to get really critical with the lingo, someone would call it more of a joint venture, the way I structured it. Because I spoke with one of my attorney friends at the time, or attorney acquaintances, and she was like, yeah, if you give the investors equal say in the deal, like they can be in the deal with you, then you don't have to go through all the technical syndication paperwork,
the SEC and all that stuff.
Yeah. So unlike the typical syndications where people are like general partners and limited partners, in ours it was literally like a JV where everybody could have a say in the deal. Now, they didn't want to do any, like I spoke with the property manager, you know what I'm saying? But for any big decisions we were making, we'll have like a conference call, they'll call in, we'll talk about it. Like even when it came time to sell, they all had a say in when we sold, how much we sold it for, when we got an initial offer, or like, they were like, should we bring down the price? Everybody kind of voted on it, and we said we weren't going to bring down the price. So, stuff like that. Now, if
you had no money, yet you had investors, and they were all at the same level without having to do the syndication stuff.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how the money happened?
Yeah.
For that
so
investment?
Basically, in that deal, I brought that deal together, and I ultimately gave them like 83% of the total pie, and I kept 16%. I didn't have any money in the deal. I think because my math was a little off when I first did it, I ended up having to put in $900 into that deal. Big whoop. My goal was zero, right? But I didn't have any of those like extra fees that syndicators, duly charge. Like they do the work, they get paid. For me, I was just happy at the time just to even have equity in the deal and manage the deal and the cash flow. So the investors basically put down the entire down payment, the entire closing costs, and even any cost that I put up front was refunded to me by the time the deal was done. And I had just $900 left in it by the time everything was said and done.
So how many of you were in this deal for 12 doors?
It was 6 of us.
And how much was the return at the end?
At the end of the day, by the time we sold the deal, everybody got back 40% more than they put into it. Like when we sold, yeah.
Not bad for your first multi-family.
Not bad
with $900 and no previous experience. Oh my goodness. So you've been up to 27 units during those long-term rentals, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you do any more like type of syndication after that?
Yeah, it's funny, after we did that one, my husband was like, yeah, can we just do our own? Like whatever we're able to just do by ourselves, I'm good with that. Because even though, how, deals go, sometimes stuff will happen. And even if at the end of the day, you're made whole, in the middle, it can be a little jarring. And I think for him, it just didn't like the idea of having anybody's money under his control at the time. And so we decided that, okay, fine, we'll just do our own deals. So when I became an attending, the very first month or two, we were able to, get like two duplexes, close on that in December, shortly after I became an attending. Again, creative financing. That has just been my thing the entire time. Basically, like, I remember I'm sitting here in my office here, but there's a board right here to my right. We literally came down here and we're like, okay, where do we have cash? How much do we have? What can we move where? When can we put what where? And so what happened was we had made a bunch of offers and 3 got accepted in 1 week. So we ended up backing out of that. There was one deal that just did not pan out. And then 2 of them we kept. And we sat here and basically mapped out how the cash was going to happen. We're able to take that down. We're able to get a pile of cash, like personal loans and things like that. And we use that same pile of cash. I call it a pile of cash because that pile of cash went through like 4 cycles of deals. And yeah, that was basically how we built our portfolio. Just basically like buying properties that needed work, rehabbing them. Once they got stabilized, we'll refinance, take the cash out, put it into the next deal, do the same thing just over and over again.
To the burr and repeat.
The burr strategy.
Burr and repeat.
Yep.
The burr strategy. Okay. Yeah. So did you learn from the burr strategist?
Oh, yeah. Oh, all my bigger pockets, folks. Yeah, of course.
Bigger pockets.
Yeah, bigger pockets was like it was my Facebook for a good year. Like I wasn't even on Facebook for a good year, just being on Bigger Pockets. Yeah.
There you go. The Bigger Pocket space. Yes. Makes your pockets bigger. It does. Yeah. So we go now from the long-term rentals. At this time, you have up to 27 units. You're working full-time. Mm-hmm. You have done 4 extra deals. So you did your first 1 door, then you had your 12 doors, then you sold that. With that money, was that you got on to your other deals or not even yet?
No. We held the 12 unit and sold it just about a year and a half. Actually, no, it's 2 years now. Oh my gosh, in 2020.
2 years now.
Yeah.
So you held for like 4 years, and at the same time, so then you acquired, let me see, like 14 more doors.
Yeah.
In the interim while you were residency, fellowship, started to work, had like 2 children during that period of time.
Yep.
Yeah, no. And then your husband was also working full time.
Yeah.
So it can be done, right?
Oh yeah. And just doing it,
but you still continue.
Yeah.
You still continue working full time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you go to have your 3rd baby and the short-term rental arbitrage of those units? Tell us how that matched there.
Yes. So baby was born in 2021. So pandemic hit in 2020. That was when we got the last of those burrs, right? The 7 unit of that we got in March 2020. And then in September, I was expecting the 3rd baby, and then I got pulled from work. My second baby was a preemie at 25 weeks. So they were keeping a really close eye on me for the third one. And she was threatening to come early too. And, you know, the whole anesthesia life doesn't quite gel with like, you know, take it easy at work. No, you don't take it easy when a baby's crashing at work. So they tried me out for 2 weeks at work after, you know, like a cerclage or whatever. And it was just no rest. I was having contractions, craziness. They were like, no, we're not doing that. So I got pulled from work on a dime. And I remember the day I saw my OB, and she called the other OB in, like the MFM guy. And he was like, yeah, so you have to be in the OR on Wednesday. And I'm like, no, I'm on call on Thursday. He's like, no, you're not. No, you are not on call on Thursday. Got pulled like that and ended up staying home for the remaining 5 months of the pregnancy. But during this time, I was thinking to myself, okay.
So were you in bed rest for those 5 months?
Thank God I was in bed rest. I would have shot someone.
Yeah, because I did 11 weeks of bed rest for my 30-week born twins. Yeah.
I said, thank God it wasn't bed rest. It was just like, you know, not the intense anesthesia like. So actually, when I was taken home or sent home, I was going to start my arbitrage. So they pulled me August. By September, October, I was already looking at arbitrage. I was like, you know what? Now I'm home. I'm free. So I actually signed my first arbitrage lease. I think it was October or something like that. And I noticed that when I would go to pick up furniture from people I was trying to buy furniture from, I'll come back home and I'll have to sit down for like 10 minutes contracting. And I was like, girl, you better sit your butt down. Like, this is not the time to be doing this run around. So I called the guy that I used to play someone. And I was like, yo, this is just not like, I'm going to save my pregnancy instead of this thing. And he was gracious, you know, I gave him the rent or whatever. And then the next.
So let's go back a little bit because we're moving on from long-term rentals to short-term rentals where you did that creative, you know, everything is about creative financing, as you said, but we haven't mentioned the word arbitrage until right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes.
So let's talk about what arbitrage is before we go on from October to when you were able to finally do it in 2021, the summer. March.
So basically, rental arbitrage is where you lease a property from an owner at the regular monthly rental rate, and then you turn it into a short-term rental or into something else that you can make more money from. So the arbitrage piece is that you're buying or paying for something at a lower rate, and you're getting you're getting more, almost like, you know, wholesale and retail kind of thing. And what it does for you in the short-term rental space is that you don't have to buy the property that you're going to turn into a short-term rental. So you can basically profit from the property as if you owned it. Because like if you think about it, if you own a property, you have to pay a mortgage, pay taxes, pay all that stuff, right? So you still have costs. But then with arbitrage, you don't have to put in like all the closing costs and the huge down payment. But then you can still profit from the spread that's in between what you make as a short-term rental versus what you pay for the long-term rental lease.
So how do you convince someone, hey, give me your house to make it a short-term rental? Like, you know, where do you find these people, and what do you tell them specifically to be able to get that rental?
It's about finding the right person, the person who is like, I guess, business-minded and passive income-minded, right? Most landlords, when they get into business, their goal is passive income. But you can tell them that, listen, I am your best tenant because I'm going to be doing business in your property. You're going to make money just like you would have anyway. And listen, if unlike regular tenants, if this property is not in good condition, I lose. So your property has to be in tip-top shape for me to be in business. Okay. And for a number of landlords, that helps them sort of get it. That said, you have to sort of search for that landlord. So I tell my clients sometimes that, you know what, you be ready for no's, because some people, you say that and you're like, oh my goodness, Airbnb, you're going to be partying in my place. They'll burn down my place or whatever. But you have to be able to sort of sell it to them And if they say no, you move on because they're not the one, right? One of my clients, for example, she got her first place like in a week. But what's about is even that the landlord came back to her and said, "Hey, I have another place. Do you want it?" When you find the landlord that gets it, they would usually offer you more because they get it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you start looking for people. Is there a particular characteristic, like you look in any listings, or do you get it through a broker? How do you do that now?
So my preference now that we've done this for about a year, my preference now is I like to be direct to the landlord, to the owner of the property. When I first did this in March, and we'll get to March, but when I first did it, last year, I went to apartment complexes. And so what I found in this past year is that it's better for you to be direct to the landlord. Now, sometimes property managers, even well-meaning, when you have a conversation with them, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. But then down the line, if something happens or if push came to shove and the owner of the property had a different idea, then they sort of back out and they're like, "Oh, well, I didn't know." Usually you want to protect yourself by having them sign some kind of a lease addendum that says, they know what I'm doing. I'm running a business. You're aware. And, this is all part of it. But we've had a couple of instances, for example, where the property manager basically acted like she had no idea we were doing our Airbnb business in there. And when it came down to it, I ended up backing out, like not backing out, but not renewing those leases because I was like, you know what, I'm not even here to deal with any and all of this of this mess.
So did you hire a specific lawyer for those papers to give them?
Yeah. So for the when we did it, we didn't hire a lawyer for them just because I had the addendums or whatever already. But if you were going into like a big deal or whatever, absolutely yes. You like to have that drawn out. Yeah.
Okay. So March came, baby's out, right?
Baby's out. Baby is 1 month old.
Baby's 1 month old, third baby. And how did you get these 10 leases in Dallas, Texas?
Yeah. So I had told them at work that I was going to be out for 4 months because I was like, I was home for 5 months, but there was no baby then. There's no reason for me to hurry back to work now. Now the baby's actually here and I need to take care of my baby. But then in March, I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what, this arbitrage thing that I sort of started last year, now I have 3 months before I go back to work. This could actually, work. Like, let me actually put in the time to build it up. And I set a target for myself, but I didn't just set a target. I had a hard stop with returning to work and I went out just combing. I mean, I reached out to so many listings for rent listings in Dallas. Why did I pick Dallas? My sister chose to move there last year. And I was like, Dallas sounds like fun. I think people travel there. It could be okay. They didn't have any regulations. I thought, you know what? This could be a good market. That's how I picked the market.
This reminds me of neurosurgery versus anesthesiology. Oh, let's go with the A. No,
yeah,
Dallas sounds fun. Let's go with that.
There's no need to keep it complicated. It works.
Okay, that was good research. That's your due diligence. Yeah.
I mean, I knew that there could have been other markets that made more money, but like I said, I had a time deadline, and there was no point spending time, burning daylight trying to find a place that gave me the most. So anyway, I ended up going down to Dallas. Now, they didn't have any regulations at the time, which for me, I knew was a bit of a risk because it's nice when you have a city that has defined short-term rental, laws. So, if I were to do it again, I'll go back to a city that had those short-term rental laws. But at the time, it was free for all. People were doing business. Everything was fine. Went down to Dallas. I still have not been to Dallas. I had a baby too, so I wasn't going to go down, COVID and everything happening at the time. I think it was Delta at the time. So I found everything online. I had my sister and my boots on the ground person. Basically, they'll go down, they'll do video tours for me. And based on what they saw about the place, we'll determine if it was a place that we wanted to invest in. And I found the first two within the first month. I think I signed my first lease for like that April 1st-ish. We moved in. I think our first guest was like April 10. But then because of how we had built our lead flow, we saw other places. And my sister was still looking, because I tell people all the time, like, you don't just get one and stop. You get more, so that if one of them falls through, you have a backup real quick. So because of all the leads, deal flow that we had gotten and the process that we had in place, we came across this other apartment complex that had just undergone like some renovation. So they had vacancies. And we went there and we asked them if we could do our business there or whatever. And they were like, yeah, how many do you want? I couldn't believe my ears. I was like, wait, what? What? He's like, how many do you want? I was like, will 6 be okay? Yeah, like, sure. So just like that, I walked into 6 apartments. I had my sister go. The place looked really kind of drab when I saw the videos, but I was like, okay, whatever. I asked her if it looked safe and all. She said it looked good, and I was like, okay. So for that particular one that I felt looked a little drab, we had designers come in and they made the place look. I mean, they turned the place up. It was gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Now, so that's 2, 6. So now we're at 8. I think those leases were signed like May, in the month of May, for the most part. And then the last 2, my sister found while she was driving down somewhere and picked up those 2. So by June we had 10. Now.
So how much was the investment? Because you say, because arbitrage, yes, you don't have to do all these other payments, but you're really like paying for furniture, for furniture and a designer to come in and all those things. Yeah. So for each, so the very first one that I did myself was like, I think I spent like $12,000 on that first one, and I was getting cross-eyed on Amazon. I would order stuff and then it was just a lot, but I ended up spending $12,000 on that. It was a 1-bedroom, but a big 1-bedroom. So I ended up, right now, that 1-bedroom still in operation. It sleeps 8 people, but we structured it in such a way that like it's a nice 1-bedroom. Now the 6 that we got, those ones, at that point we had a designer. They're able to get each of those like about $6,000 all in, including the designer and all, for those 6. Yeah. Which company? No, we won't advertise. I know, right? Like, oh my goodness. That's half the price. For how many bedrooms did each of those units have? 1 bedroom each, and each of them we made to sleep 4. So about half the number of people it slept, but yeah. And in a year that you've had them, almost getting to a year and a half, how has the return been for those? Yeah. So when we had them in operation, because there's a whole story to all of this. When we had them in operation, those places were banging out at least $1,000 a month per unit for like when it was fully rented out. But then in that building that we got 6, if like a month or 2 into it, it was like, wait, we'll have guests come in, they'll complain about like marijuana smells from the neighbors. And then it happened that there was a pipe burst. And that pipe burst took down a lot of things. After a couple of months of dealing with that, I was like, yo, this is not worth my peace. That's why he said, how many you want? Right. That was right. Like, that's the red flag. It's like, I don't want too many. Let's go. Yeah, we absolutely found out. And see, the thing is, even normally just like a vacant place, if it was just vacant, I wouldn't just have taken it, but it's because they had just done renovation. So I had a reason for the vacancy. You see what I'm saying? Plus somebody that I knew wasn't like actually recommended that place. Like the reason I even asked them in the first place was because somebody that I knew and respected actually mentioned that building. He was like, ask them, because he knew that they were renovating. But anyway, when things started to happen after a while, I was just like, you know what, this place is not worth my peace. I was losing my Fridays because whenever my guests would check in, my heart would be like on my neck,
trying to see like, is something going to go wrong? Something going to go wrong? Something going to go wrong. So I just like packaged everything, cleared those apartments, paid them whatever I needed to pay them. And that was probably one of the hardest things that had ever happened to me in like real estate in the past, like since I began doing real estate stuff. But then eventually, you know, my sister, who now helps people get like their units set up, she bought like some furniture. Right now, we still have some of them still in storage, but I was like, it's not even. Anything that's costing me my peace is too expensive. It's just way too expensive.
And talking about peace, like you have to put these teams together. And you had your sister being like the scout, but who was managing your properties in both in New York and in Texas?
Yeah. So the properties in New York, we had them with property managers, so traditional property managers. The ones in Texas, when I knew that I wanted to scale and I scaled fairly fast, I hired a personal assistant to basically be my legs on the ground. So she was the one that will go kind of get the things that were not necessarily like cleaning related. So I had I had housekeepers for the regular Airbnb type turnarounds. But with the things like, you know, like going to see what the cleaners did, or maybe like restocking supplies, I had an assistant that was on the ground that was actually able to go look at those. And since at the time we had that many units, we were able to spread the cost of having one across the multiple units, and it worked out. So, you know, when we
was each unit an LLC? Each unit was a separate LLC, or
we put all the arbitrage stuff into one LLC. Wow, okay. It was all, you know, cash flow. So that there were no like actual assets, if you may. I mean, the business is an asset, but yeah.
Super cool. So let's talk about a little bit about how your life has changed, because it changed because you went to anesthesiology, you went to pediatric anesthesiology, and you had that moment where the A was up there and you had the babies, and your husband, he's not a physician, correct?
He's not a physician, no.
No, he's doing his MBA right now. And you went to have your third baby. Mm-hmm. And you went from bed rest after 9 months. Well, not bed rest. You went from your time off the 5 months. Then you had which you were taking advantage of doing your real estate anyways. Mm-hmm. And then you went for the 4 months. So that's 9 months. You have a baby who's 4 months. And then you go back into your full-time anesthesiology. What happened? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So actually just before I went off work, I was 0.8, but like it was literally like the week I was going off. So when I technically came back, I was 0.8, but even that 0.8, you know, whatever full-time equivalent that I came back and I said, because at that point now my coaching business had started growing. And so I had the coaching business growing. I had now the 10 units in Dallas that had just now come on board. I got to work and I'm like, this is just crazy. And so someone just happened to have mentioned, do you want to go to 0.5? And I was like, actually, yeah, I do. And at the time, she had the idea of us kind of sharing a position, you know, going, 0.5 FTE each of us, and basically sharing the position so that we could be more flexible with our schedule. But when we pitched it to our department, they didn't like the idea of actually sharing. They just said, you know what, you can both go 0.5, but you'll be your own 0.5. And I was like, works for me. I just want to be home. You know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you now have your real estate, mm-hmm. your coaching, mm-hmm. you have your part-time 0.5, mm-hmm. and you're a mom. And how does it feel to be able to go to 0.5, have that freedom? When did you feel like, I can do this? And how did that feel, that moment when you realized, oh, I can do this?
Yeah. So at the point when she asked that question, it was like June. I had just returned to work. I knew actually just before then, I had done a push in my coaching business. And when people joined my coaching program at the time, I realized that in that month, I had generated more than I was going to make in the entire month of being at work, being at a point, even 0.8 or full time. And so I said, I have learned in the past couple of months that I can actually build a business or businesses that generate decent income. That same month, the arbitrage business was also pretty good. So I was like, why? Like, why would I forfeit something that I can grow myself without a cap for something that has a cap and is also demanding my time? And that was when I decided that, you know what? These may still be in their, baby forms or whatever, things may not necessarily, there may be ups and downs, but I know that I have the skills and we could probably ride out whatever it is that happens. So I was like, yeah, you know what, let's just, yeah.
So do you think your HGTV dream came true?
My HGTV dream is still in progress. It definitely is still in progress because, everything, when we talk about real estate and we talk about businesses and things, it's hard to communicate how great it is without also communicating there may be hard times in between. Because if you say there may be hard times in between, somebody sees it and says, oh, then there's no reason to start. But then you're like, wait, no, that's not what I said. That is not what I said. What I said is that you can get this good thing, but you have to be ready for the times when it's not as great, right? Because even short-term rentals, like I say, you know what, we just got this property. Eventually we get to that one. And it's amazing. It's making all this money. But then I can also tell you that we had to fix a septic tank a couple of days ago. That's not a reason not to go for the money. You just deal with things as they come.
I love being a physician. I just don't like prior authorizations and like just let's add all the things that we don't like about medicine and we're still doing medicine, right?
Right.
So you can let your creativity, go. You have decisions. You're able to make the choice to work for joy and not for need, like you've done yourself. Exactly. Like, you've decided and you have one thing that you didn't have was really control of your life. And now you have regained and you're retaining control of your life because you have entrepreneurship in your life. And that can look like many things, right? In your case, It looks like this combination of long-term and short-term rentals and this creative financing that you've done. And also with your husband, like your husband is also able to go to part-time.
Yep.
And he's studying at the same time, doing things that maybe studying his MBA would have been a much challenging thing than doing, and having partners for different business with you guys just doing medicine and whatever it was that he was doing.
Yep.
Right? Yeah,
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, so if we want to learn more about these details, like we want to go and do all these things that you've done and you've been so creative and so wonderful in achieving and on your way to your HTV dream, where can we find you?
The best place actually will be pwrcon2022.com, because that is where we are actually putting together a three-day blitz thing for those who want to learn to get started with short-term rentals. So pwrcon2022.com, that's where basically all roads are leading to right now in our world. Because in the past year, with the experience of managing those 10 short-term rentals at one time, pivoting to actually buying short-term rentals, and now even helping other people get started with their short-term rentals, we've been able to really show people like how to build theirs. Yeah.
And what's the day of the conferences?
Well, that one is October 21 through 23rd, down in Charleston, South Carolina.
All roads lead to Charleston, South Carolina. Have you been there before choosing the place? Did you choose it on alphabetical order? Did somebody tell you how did you choose? How did you choose Charleston?
You kind of are seeing a theme here. Well, let's just say I was at work.
Yeah, I want to know that because
the place.
Exactly. See, guys, you have to trust her. You have to like her. There you go. That's how she does her things. But it works. It works. Like it's a matter of mindset and really having not only about you've had some education on these topics before, like you knew really what anesthesiology was before, and somebody had talked to you about it before. You just hadn't seriously thought about it. So there is some research and some things that happened before. But anyways, I want to thank you for being here. This has been such a fun and wonderful and amazing learning experience with you. We look forward to see you on the PowerCon 2022 conference from October 21 to 23rd. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your beautiful, spirit with us. And we hope to see you soon again.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned for more of our Design Your Physician Life podcast, which was brought to you today by our Maxillary Mastermind, an exclusive personal and professional development program for physicians where you learn entrepreneurship. We will continue to bring you useful resources to develop your physician entrepreneur life, like we did today with Dr. Chiagozie Fawole. She actually will have a conference, and you can reach this conference at pwrcon2022.com. That is P as in Paul, W-R, C as in cat, O-N as in Nancy, 2022.com. And this conference will take place from October 21st through 23rd, 2022. I hope you can join her. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you had a great time as we did. Stay in touch with us. Visit our website, maxallure.com. That is MAXALLURE. Please don't forget to subscribe, like us, give us 5 stars, and share the love with your friends and family. See you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.